other people who speculate about the world, they say that these forces had to have been so finely tuned in order for the world to exist. And had they been just slightly out of sync, then the world either would have remained inert, and so therefore no life-giving properties, or it wouldn't have started to begin with. It wouldn't even got off the ground. So from this, maybe we can make certain obvious inferences that the source that brought the world into existence, if it has power, if it has will, if it has a certain level of cognizance or knowledge and wisdom, that this thing isn't just some random existent thing, but it's actually a thing that exists. It's actually alive. Because you and I, we have these attributes that define us. In fact, if you have a look at the world, look at this bin, for instance. That bin has attributes. There's nothing that exists except that it must be qualified of attributes. That bin is black, it's hard, it's in time, so you can give those attributes to the bin. We are more sophisticated than the bin, so we can give ourselves more attributes, right? We have will, we have volition, we make decisions, etc., etc. Now, if we describe ourselves as being alive, and we're part of this sophisticated universe that started from a point of chaos and progressed to a point of life-giving properties, then what about the source that brought and implanted within the world all these necessary qualities to bring it about from chaos to this level of harmony? Why don't we infer that the source must be alive, and that this source must be incredibly powerful, incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly wise, and have volition? So there's a verse in the Quran that describes, is a question to the atheists really, and to the deists as well. And one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad is our prophet. We believe that he's the last of the final messengers from the very many prophets and messengers that were sent to mankind. His companion said, when I heard this verse for the first time, that's when faith became implanted within my heart. He had faith, but it hadn't settled in his heart. And the verse says, and I'll give it to you in Arabic, أَمْ خُلِقٌ مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُؤْقِنُونَ. Or were they created by nothing? Or did they create themselves? Or were they the creators of the universe? Nay, they have no certainty. Meaning they don't have certainty of knowledge. So again, we spoke about nothingness. Nothingness can't bring anything about, so we can exclude that from the equation. What brought us into existence? Our mother and father? Yeah? And before them, their mother and father? And yet, we know that we're part of the universe. We couldn't have brought the universe into existence because the universe preceded us. So God then describes, rather than saying, well, therefore God brought the universe into existence, he appeals to the intellects that require to be rectified. He says, nay, they have no certainty. And certainty is something all of us human beings are yearning for, a certain level of certainty. So the Quran, if you don't know, never really came to appeal to the atheists, because it took as a given that human beings have within them what the atheists today describe as the God problem. In the Arabic language, it's known as a fitrah, this primordial state that all children are born upon. And as they become older, if their natural inclination, the atheist, for instance, is on that plane, and that plane is going down, and the pilot says, guys, brace yourselves, I promise you that atheist is going to be looking up naturally and saying, if you're out there, help me. Yeah. Because it's a natural instinct within human beings to look up. And some of our scholars, they said that this natural inclination to look up is a proof of God. And it reminds me of a funny thing that I recently came across on the internet, where the atheist asking for proof of God is like the fish swimming in the ocean asking for evidence of H2O. Yeah. Because we are an evidence of a source outside of ourselves. Yeah. So in the Quran, God never really came to convince the atheist. All God says in the Quran is, Afillahi shak, is there any doubt? Fatiris samawati wal ard, in the originator of the universe? There can't be any doubt, because if there is, you have to then grasp with the mind-blowing imponderables about, well, what if there's no God, no source, the world is either eternal or the world never existed. And we know the world does exist, so we have to face that question. So this is how the Quran the Prophet Muhammad and Islam came to satisfy the curiosities of mankind regarding belief in God. And once we recognize that there is a source, we ask ourselves, well, did this source communicate with us, or did it just allow us to just randomly do whatever we want?
It's definitely communicated with us. I 100% that I do believe that there is certain things that have happened. And I mean, again, it's, for example, with the Quran and just any other religious beliefs and stuff. There has been moments, and I would love to believe in that so much. It definitely brings people a lot of power, and I do like that.
A lot of people sometimes feel as though they're waiting for the apple to fall on their head. You know, that big booming voice from the heavens, that finger, right? But the question then arises, well, how are you looking at this source? And what position are you as a very insignificant, small, fallible human being who doesn't have complete knowledge of the world? How are you dictating what the purpose is in life? And oftentimes people are looking for religion like ice cream, their favorite flavor of the week. But religion, as some of our scholars have said in regards to analogy, is like medicine. Medicine is taken when a person recognizes that they're ill, and even if the medicine may cause some difficulties, they do it because they owe it to themselves and their loved ones to become better. So cancer, for instance, it's a severe solution, but it's better than dying unless you have a death wish. But if you love yourself and you love your friends and you owe it to them and you owe it to yourselves, then you would want to become better, because life is a precious thing. So religion is not about whether you get God to follow you, but whether you should be following the source, knowing that that source brought you and everything else into existence, and you owe it some gratitude. So often God juxtaposes the rights that we have towards our mother and father to his rights. So there's a verse in the Quran which is often described as the Prophet's final will. And you know, when someone writes a will, it's usually they speak about the most important things. And when I die, my dog, make sure it's looked after, give so much money to my daughter and my son, and so on and so forth. My property, split it up. The Prophet Muhammad's will was as follows, and it's in chapter 7 of the Quran. It says, "Let me recite unto you what your Lord has forbidden you from, that you do not associate any partners in his worship." Meaning that God has given us a way to say thanks to him. He's communicated with certain individuals within the long saga, and those human beings have been purified with evidences, given evidences, so that they may convince human beings that there is a purpose in life, and there are consequences to this. That human beings, we recognize rights amongst ourselves, right? We know that if there weren't laws in the world, people would just tear themselves apart. But we have those are the laws outside of ourselves. We have instinctual laws within ourselves. Like when you come together with your partner, you know that if you lie and steal, that's not going to be very conducive. And you don't need revelation to tell you that. That's just an inbuilt instinctual thing, which goes back to the fitrah that I was telling you about. That human beings just have this primordial state of recognizing the truth. So whether you're living in the middle of the jungle as a primitive tribe, whether you're in the most advanced civilizations, all human beings, they know they have to come together to work together towards a purpose. So we recognize rights amongst ourselves. How about the one that brought all of us into existence, gave us this ability to love, to feel, to have mercy, to be angry? Doesn't that have a right over us? That it just allowed us to just live our life based upon our own caprice, our own idea? No, there has to be a purpose, because the sum of the parts make up the whole. If the very smallest things, like the gluons and the muons, if they make up collectively the world, and we all together collectively make up the human beings as a collective, then it stands to reason that the one that brought all of this into existence brought us about for a purpose. And the ones who told us what this is, they came regularly to bring mankind back to the true worship. And we're saying that the true worship is as follows: that وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. It's a very small verse in the Quran, but it's a powerful verse which sums up mankind's purpose. God says, "I have not created jinn," which is like an alternate form of life, "nor mankind except that they worship me." That's it. This worship is not how we define it, but how the Creator defines it. Because when we go towards a particular object, We want to know what that object is, so that the more we find out about that object, the more reverence we'll have towards it, the more respect we'll have towards it, the more love, the more devotion. If that object is good, our love and our gratitude will increase. If it's evil, and we know it to be evil, obviously, we're going to keep away from that. So God describes himself in the Quran through his various attributes. He describes himself as the one who's extremely merciful. He describes himself as the just. He describes himself as the loving. He describes himself as the one who also punishes. He says in one verse, he says, "O my slaves who have transgressed against their own souls, do not ever despair at the mercy of your Lord." Don't ever despair, because your God is the one who forgives all sins, for your God is oft-forgiving, most merciful. These are some of his names, the oft-forgiving. He forgives again and again because he knows we're fallible. He knows we make mistakes. And therefore he's the one that dispenses mercy. But he also describes himself as the just. And justice in Islam is defined as putting thing in its rightful place. Like, for instance, that's your board, right? Now, if I was to take that from you and run away, that's injustice, because I'm trying to place something where it doesn't belong. I'm saying that what belongs to you is mine, and I grab it and I run off with it. Now, you know that that's yours. Anyone that does that is committing a level of injustice. He's taking something that doesn't belong from you. So Islam talks about the justice, and it says, he says that declare unto my slaves that indeed I am the oft-forgiving, most merciful, but my punishment, it is the severest of all punishments. Because if we die and we have a purpose, then if God is telling us that the one who created you the first time can bring you about the second time, and that is easy for him, and he's saying that there will be a day of judgment, that human beings will be held to account, because if this being is the one that has these attributes that I told you about, and he elaborates on those attributes, that he's not just knowledgeable, he's not just wise, he doesn't just have a will, he's not just powerful, but he's just, and justice entails that he will separate the good from the bad. Because this world that we live in, it indicates that this is the world of not absolute good, nor absolute evil. It's a world of both good and evil. And that is from God's wisdom. Why? God answers the question in the Quran. He says that he who created death and life so that he may test which of you are best in deeds. Imagine this world was just pure good. Could justice ever be implemented? No. Imagine it was just light, no concept of darkness, right? So God says in the Quran that he has created everything in pairs so that they may reflect. Why is he saying they may reflect? Because the creator of pairs, good and evil, light and darkness, he's telling us that the one who created the pairs must be singular. So once we recognize that the world itself is created in pairs and it's necessarily dependent upon the source has to be one. And it requires nothing from us, but we require something from it. So all of these questions are answered in the Quran in regards to our purpose in life. And I would say that the answers that the Quran gives, if people were to reflect deeply, they would find that these are compatible with their intellect, compatible with their heart. So God says that he created death and life so that he may test which of you are best in deeds. And then he warns, he says, that indeed you will be tested by loss of life, by famine, right? And you will find that you will lose your wealth, you will lose family members, and you will lose your crops. But then he says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. But glad tidings are for the people who have patience, because patience is an incredible quality. We're going to go through life, and oftentimes when people don't know what the greater concept of what life is all about, they fall into despair. But imagine you recognize that God brought all of this into existence. The world is a world of good and evil. The world is where we are invariably going to be tested. But the verse continues. 2 verses later, God says that those who have patience are the ones who say that indeed from God we have come, and to God we shall return. In other words, nothing belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. We may think it belongs to us. Oh, my children, oh, they belong to me, they belong to me. They don't. They could be taken away at any time, right? But once you recognize that nothing belongs to you, you've submitted yourself. And that's the meaning of Muslim. The one who submits his will to the will of God. So let me just break it down and give you the 6 articles of faith. It's belief in the unseen God, belief in his angels, belief in his previous books that he sent. The Quran, the Gospel, not the Gospels, but the Gospel, the Torah, the Suhuf, the pages, the scriptures that were given to Abraham, and so on and so forth. Belief in the books, belief in the prophets and messengers, from the first to the last, and belief in the Day of Judgment. And sixthly, belief in divine ordainment, that God, who brought everything into existence, that creates the world from one moment to another, has complete mastery and knowledge of what will take place. So once you recognize that nothing takes place except that it is under his control, you submitted yourself. You have to submit yourself. And that's what Islam is calling to. They're calling human beings back to the true worship of God. And the way you become a Muslim is you just simply say, after recognizing, number one, that only the source is the one worthy of worship. Nothing, no gratitude, and gratitude in the sense of worship, gratitude in the sense of true deep-seated love, can be directed to anything more than the Creator. Firstly, the source requires that deep-seated foundational love. And then thereafter, you love people around you. So just to finish off that verse about Muhammad's will in the Quran, that let me recite unto you what your Lord has forbidden you from, that you do not associate any partners with him. That is talking about God's rights. That if you recognize he is the source of all things, why are you calling upon Jesus? Why are you calling upon Ram? Why are you calling upon Waheguru? Why are you calling upon the sun and the moon? Why are you calling upon creation? Rather, call upon the one who created all those things. And then the verse juxtaposes the rights of God with, guess who? The rights of your mother and father. And it's an extraordinary thing. And it says that you be ihsanan, you be the best, not the second best, it's in the superlative of the language. You have to be the best that you can be. And in another part of the Quran, God says, when one of them or both of them reach old age, extend a wing of humility over them and don't say uff. Now uff is like kissing your teeth. That's the equivalent in the Arabic language. So the respect that the mother and father have is so immense, it's juxtaposed alongside God's rights. So Islam, if you were to sum up what Islam is all about, it's the implementation of rights. But rights not as we define it. Because if we begin to turn away from the source, we're going to improvise. And as fallible human beings, we'll be experimenting in life. And experimentations can lead people astray. And God in the Quran, he indicates this. He says, evil has appeared in the land and in the sea because of what the hands of men have earned, so that they may taste a portion of that evil and return back to God in repentance. So the evils that we see amongst us, it's only because we're doing things that God hasn't commanded. God never told us to throw our mother and father into the old people's home when we have the ability to be able to look after them. God never told us to be rude to them. God never told us to be rude to our neighbors. He told us to look out beyond ourselves, to recognize rights amongst ourselves, and to recognize that God has defined how to live life. So there's a verse in the Quran where God says that we have revealed to you a book which is an exposition of all necessary things. It is a mercy, it is a guidance, and it is glad tidings for those who believe. So the qualification here is you have to believe, because it's only the one who believes and submits himself that will acquire the mercy and the mercy of your Lord. And then the verse continues, truly God, he commands to all that is just, and he commands to righteous actions, and that you enjoin this upon yourselves, and he never commands to evil, injustice and oppression. And this is what he has enjoyed upon you, so that you may become righteous. So this is essentially what the Quran teaches. It teaches establishment of rights as God has defined it. And God assures you, he says, truly in the remembrance of their Lord will hearts find rest. There is no, for us as Muslims, the world, people who run after the world, there is no satisfaction there, because the world is fleeting. The world will come and go. The only thing that will remain is God. And so we're heading towards that inevitable end. So God is telling mankind to come back to his worship. And if the truth comes your way, to be sincere towards it. One of the foundational aspects of Islam's worship of God is sincerity. The Prophet said that all actions are judged but by intention. Meaning what's in your heart. Anyone who intends to worship God will do so for God's sake. And anyone who does it for a worldly thing, like marriage or moving to another country, then that worship will be for that. In other words, it won't be for God. It'll be tainted. And God does not accept worship that is not sincerely for His sake. And what is sincere? Sincere is doing it for His sake alone and doing it in the correct way. If you don't have those two, the worship that some people claim, I have the feeling that I'm worshipping God. Well, did God tell you this? No. How do you know? How do you know that this worship is true? How do you know that that worship may not lead you to errant conclusions, errant ways? Like, for instance, we have people who say that God can be worshipped in the form of everything and anything under the sun. The rat, the monkey, the cow, to the point where some human beings say that God can be worshipped in the form of a human genitalia, the lingam and the yoni. Whilst other religions say no, worship God alone. There's nothing in creation which is similar, created from the same things that you're created from, that can benefit you. And the God speaks about this in the Quran. He says that those whom you call upon besides God have created nothing. That's one of the conditions. They've created nothing, but it is they themselves who are created. It's an incredible thing. So the distinction between the creator and the creation in Islam, I think, is by far the purest, the most intuitive, and the one that human beings, when they come across, they recognize as the truth. So how do you become a Muslim? If you believe what I've said, the foundational aspects of Islam, you believe that God is the only one worthy of being worshipped, you believe that Muhammad is the last and final messenger of God who came with these truths from God, and he was the examples that was there for mankind to recognize and follow, then all you do is you declare with your lips, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's it. La ilaha means a negation of all false deities except Allah. And it's not just a negation of deities, it literally means a negation of the worship of false deities. So it's not a numerical oneness, it's much more than that, it's much more profound. And by affirming that only God is the one that's worthy of being worshipped, you've said to God, I negate all other false forms of worship, whether that be the worship of money, personalities. That personality could be, some Muslims worship Muhammad, sadly, and that's the greatest crime against God. And in the Quran, God says that He will forgive all sins except for one, and that is that a person willfully, purposefully, knowing the truth, dies upon associating partners in God's worship. That person will not be forgiven. So the Quran gave us, and I just finished the declaration, after La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that there is none worthy of being followed except Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, who was born over 1400 years ago. If you accept that, all your past deeds have been forgiven. You're like a newly born baby, clean slate, and you can move into the fold of Islam, come into the fraternity of brotherhood. Have you heard of Malcolm X? Yes. Yeah, Malcolm X was a perfect example of a man who used to follow the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam were this racist black organization that I think you could quite easily say were a mirror image of the racist white Christians. They said that a black man was God, to counter the idea that the blonde, blue-haired white man was a God, right? Malcolm X came across Orthodox Islam later on in his life, and he made his pilgrimage to Mecca, which is the fifth pillar of Islam. The 5 pillars: belief in God, that you worship God 5 times a day, and that's all He's asking for you. Belief that 2.5% of your surplus wealth, what's in your bank, be given to the poor on an annual basis, and that you fast every year during the month of Ramadan, 30 days from sunrise to sunset. And that's a purification. So the wealth is purified through giving money to the poor, so you don't become niggardly. And when you fast, that's a combination of both giving charity and doing all these good deeds. And the 5th is, if you can afford it, going to pilgrimage once in your lifetime. And if you go there, you'll find an extraordinary phenomenon where everyone is dressed in white garbs, the rich and the poor are unidentifiable, and it's a representation of the Day of Judgment. In the Quran, God tells us that when He destroys the world, how the mountains will literally be destroyed to the point they're like floating wool. how the earth will and the moon will wind round into the sun, and the sun will lose its light, and the universe will be brought to an end. And the one who created the universe will create a new existence, and that's when the Day of Judgment will occur. But the Quran goes into detail in regards to this. So, Malcolm X, when he went to Mecca, he saw these people dressed in their white garbs, and it was a representation of the Day of Judgment, where we all come together and worship God. He wrote back to his wife, and he said to his wife that I have eaten from the... Remember, this is a man who believed that the white man was the devil, literally the devil. He said that I've eaten from the same plate and I've drunk from the same glass of a man whose eyes are the bluest of blue and whose skin is the whitest of white. But he said that the white racist attitude had been expunged from his heart. He said, indeed, if there is a solution for the racism of America today, it is Islam. So Islam came to teach that the only differentiation between the man and the woman, the black and the brown, the white and the yellow, this culture and that culture, the only differentiation between all of that is not that, but rather your piety towards God. And Prophet Muhammad, in his last sermon to his 100,000 of his companions, he said that no black man is superior to a white man, nor a white man superior to a black man, nor an Arab superior to a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab superior to an Arab, except through piety and good deeds. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Sounds good. So what do you think about what I've said?
I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me, and it's definitely shed a lot of light. I'm very glad, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Have you ever read the Quran?
No, I haven't myself, no.
Can we give you can I give you a little present?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, would that be right? It's free.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
brilliant. No worries. Come with me. You're going to bring it? Go on, then. Yeah, so, when you're in your time, have a read through it. I mean, I'm hoping what I've said just has made a modicum of sense, a little bit of sense. And what we would say, also be sincere, because we don't have middlemen in Islam. We're not like the Catholics where we need to go confess our sins. We believe that the source of all things, you're very welcome. The source of all things is the one who hears and sees all. He describes himself in the Quran as Sami al-Basir, the all-hearing, the all-seeing. And he says in the Quran, وَقَالُوا رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Call upon me, I'll answer your call. Why? Because he knows we're fallible. The Prophet said, all the children of Adam, they fall into sin. They will err. But the best of those who sin are those who repent. In other words, recognize we're going to fall into error. But we learn from those mistakes and we become stronger at the end of it, repenting to God and vowing we're not going to go back to that sin. So listen, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All the best, right? We're here every Saturday, by the way, so if you want to come down, any more questions, feel free. Or if there's a mosque near you, just go to the Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah?
Sure.
Nice one, mate.
Thank
Take
you
care.
very much.
Bye-bye.
You have to say something?
I think that speaks for itself.
call Uncle Sasha.
Who's this?
Me.
I think that speaks for itself.
Uncle Othman 10 MashaAllah, Allahumma barik. Let me bring that. You don't want?
So anyway, on you. I agree.
But we're just trying to have a nice conversation.
No, we do it for educational purpose as well. So if we, but if she doesn't want it, if you don't want it, we won't do it.
Now, is it okay then? I don't even want to carry on a conversation that
Okay, I mean, I'll force you. But since you were speaking very nicely, if you want to...
Finish 6 and
Famous, you know. If somebody knows you, come by and look, he said, wow, I never knew. You know, he got so many cameras around. So, okay, anyway, if you want to carry on, let's talk about that. You know, like we are in Stratford, okay, and we see, when we look around, so many people from abroad. So many people who are passing by, you know, standing here, doing whatever they are, and they are from African background, they are from Asian background, yes. And I have seen that as I have grown up in this country, that more and more people from African background, Asian background, they are increasing, okay. And I see less and less people, the original British, or let's say of white background. Why do you think that is, if I may ask?
Why you say more people of color?
Yeah, like more people, when you look around, like this is Stratford, we are here, or if you go to certain other areas, like Whitechapel, like Brixton, you know, which are also in London, okay, you see, you go into those areas, but you see so many people who are originally from abroad, but they seem to be increasing in numbers. Where is the original white people, the English, the West?
That's what I said to you.
Yeah.
We're all flocking, or everyone's flocking to come here,
Yes.
and they're all flocking to leave here.
Yes, but we're coming here, for example,